Hello, episode 3 of our epic generation to showcase the amazing, inspiring, and simply interesting things that our generation is up to, but also to touch on potential solutions and discussing how we as a society and community can get involved in such solutions. And to also understand that some of these things we discuss, they're not unrealistic or things that our everyday community can't reach. So got a special guest. He's literally the epitome of good vibes. Ryan Mannix, how are you, bro?
Hey, buddy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great, man. Great. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. How about you? Nice to see you. We matched up with the t-shirts. That's kind of cool.
We did, man. We did. Fantastic.
Do you notice that in isolation, it's kind of like you just got... I feel like I'm just kicking around in trackies all day, actually, and just like... I don't know where you're hanging out in the world. I'm in Melbourne, so I'm still in lockdown, but it's almost just like trackies and something perhaps upstairs that's a little bit more professional. I wouldn't think a black t-shirt. Presentable was a big word.
No, I couldn't agree more. I'm locked down in Melbourne in Hawthorne. Today was beautiful, bit of sunshine, and track out life, man.
I know. I feel like even going out in the markets and that, everyone's just rolling trackies, and it's like, who cares? We're all in this together.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Mate, might get stuck straight into it. So today I wanted to, as we discussed, just cover things like exploring yoga and meditation, its place in the world, daily practice, and the idea of relaxing with change, and also how and why yoga for you. So maybe we'll start with, how and why yoga for you, man. As one of the most epic yoga teachers I've ever met.
Oh, mate, thanks. I've always, it's always fun seeing you in class. I mean, it's few and far between these days, isn't it? But it's nice, especially down the coast. I cherish those memories of us sort of practicing down there at Yoke and having a surf afterwards.
Yes.
I think, and that sort of, I would say that sort of shadows yoga for me. It's like, it's all about community. And I think that's the nourishing side of yoga for me. I mean, obviously it's a self practice and it's a daily practice, and and I think this is the good thing about yoga. It's like some people are into yoga because it's fun. They like going and having a workout, or they enjoy sort of just going with their mates, and that's cool because that's where they're at. And some people enjoy going to yoga and making it a daily practice, or even just doing a practice at home. That's where they're at, so that's kind of cool. And then there's others that are sort of going deep into this sort of more subtle body, and wherever you are in your yoga practice, I think that's cool. That's where you're at. So I never think that, some people are always like, oh, I don't know about yoga. It's like, it's so far, it feels, so far out from where I'm at the moment. And it's kind of like, you just sort of dive in, and wherever you're at, that's where the practice sort of meets you. And that's the cool thing about it. I don't think, for me, I was always like, I was pretty intimidated actually when I first stepped into the yoga studios. Back in the day, there's never really not many guys doing yoga at that point. And I always felt like, I was definitely out of my comfort zone, talking about emotions and connecting with feelings and so forth. I didn't really grow up talking about emotions and connect with feelings. It was always, I think, growing up in with this attitude of sort of showing love and affection through jokes and banter and that sort of, so when we started to really get in touch with emotions and feelings, it was sort of new and foreign. And I think that's been really lovely, to be able to connect with different people on that sort of level. And that's where the community sort of comes in. I notice the people that I sort of get around these days and hang out with very much on that sort of level, that they're able to sort of talk to what's happening and quite open to share and be vulnerable and things like that, which is kind of cool to hang out in that zone. I like hanging out in that zone.
Yeah, fantastic, man. And then you're involved with run clubs and Lululemon as well. You're doing some amazing things. And I've seen you, like, there's a bit of a focus shift towards this, not just the body piece of yoga, but also that mind piece and soul piece, which is like the mindfulness and meditative side of it. Like,
it's funny. Because I think that's where it all sort of started out for me. It was very much a physical practice. I remember going back into my first sort of practices were in the Bikram yoga studios. I don't know if you've ever experienced a Bikram class.
Yeah.
And you kind of walk in and you get hit by a brick wall of stench and 40-degree heat. And I kind of thrived off that. I love the physical sort of element of the practice. And then I really enjoyed the asana and that sort of physical practice. And more so as just a nice opportunity to move. You know, I think that movement's medicine. And I was talking about this morning on a run, you know, like when we don't move and we're sort of stuck and we're stuck inside, you can sort of get a little pent up, you know. It's like there's I think real sort of merit in movement as a opportunity to release tension and sort of, but then when we sort of, the more you practice yoga, I think the more that you start to understand the mind, you know, you understand the more subtle layers of being. And, you know, this is spoken a lot about in yoga, so you could talk about it. There's so many levels of the subtle body, but I think they're all sort of interconnected in a way. And I found that, yeah, the more I practiced asana, the more I started to become more, you know, just more and more interested in the meditation and the mindfulness, and notice that, you know, the asana is one point of, I mean, that's very common. If you said what's yoga, a lot of people these days will sort of look at it as a physical practice, but you know, traditionally it's always a meditation practice, and the physical practice sort of lends itself to the meditation practice. So I'm definitely more interested in the mindfulness and the meditation. I just find it's useful for everyday living, you know, to navigate through pandemics and, you know, everything that's going on in the world. I would be lost without the meditation practice. I think it's been really useful to have a solid practice, you know?
Wow, that's amazing, man. And so, like, how did you essentially get into yoga teaching, and then your journey, like, you know, I guess in a brief nutshell, how did you become who you are? From what I know and the community knows, you're like an epic yoga teacher.
I'm glad one of the people out there like my classes. I would say I got into yoga as a chance. I was always a runner back in the day, and you know that I was lucky for that to be, you know, sort of take me around the world and so forth. And really, it was sort of a career for me. And I got injured, so I lost that identity. I identified myself as a runner and a duathlete, and when I lost that, I sort of look for something else to leech onto, just for a means of rehabilitation, actually. So I was trying to rehab an injury, and I was a school teacher as well. So then I started doing yoga, and it was like my injury sort of got better, and you know, I was ready to start running again. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep the yoga practice going because I enjoyed it so much. I'd walk out of a yoga class and feel energized at the same time as feel grounded. Whereas that was different to something like a physical practice, or, you know, going for a run or something. I'd sort of feel the energy, but I'd feel pretty tired. I'd be laying on the couch for the rest of the day. I'd train hard and then I'd rest and recover. But I noticed that the yoga practice, I'd walk out feeling energized, but at the same time, I was feeling quite grounded. So I thought it was such, you know, it was a really cool practice. So I stayed with it. And being a teacher by nature, by trade, I thought, you know what, I could teach this stuff. So I moved to Bali and started to teach and training, and the rest is history. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's a really cool story. And I guess next question would be, what's next for yourself, man? What's next for Ryan Mannix?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've sort of been, I mean, I think everyone's so, I don't know, the conversations I'm having, I don't know what your sort of vibe is, but the conversations I'm having is, I think a lot of people are thinking what's next, you know, especially from what's happened with this pandemic and so forth. And we've had a lot more time to sort of kind of rest back and and just kind of like reassess and what's important and what sort of lights you up and what makes you happy, and you know, maybe a career change or something. I think I'm definitely going to keep going down the yoga path. There's so much to sort of learn and explore. I really love mentoring and teaching. I think there's an element. I've always sort of been either a running coach or a school teacher, or there's something when I'm learning something, I love to teach it, and I think that's sort of something that's inbuilt. So I really love mentoring. I really love helping out new teachers. I think that, you know, what inspires me at the moment is new teachers. They're sort of so enthusiastic to teach yoga, and I had some really good mentors when I was a new yoga teacher, and I think I'd love to sort of extend my hand to that and sort of reach out for new teachers and help them through their journey to perhaps teach this stuff, because it can be a difficult industry these days. You know, there's a lot of yoga teachers around, and not so much difficult in a way that's sort of a negative side. I think it's really just, again, there's so many yoga teachers, yet there's so many people practicing yoga. So there's lots of opportunities. So yeah, I dig helping out new teachers. I really sort of vibe off that, because that energy it creates gives you energy. You know, what inspires you inspires others, and I think you get in this loop of good energy. And through that, you know, like as a yoga teacher, and I know with anything, if you're a part of something, I think you accelerate a lot faster rather than if you go off and do it by yourself. I think when you're a part of a team, I think there's a lot more growth. And that's what's been really cool about teaching and mentoring, is that there's a sort of shared experience, like really open to share things, and through that everyone grows, not just one person. I think it's really valuable to have community.
That's fantastic. I couldn't agree more, man, with everything we've talked about as well. Like in these lockdowns, especially stage 4, we're 1 week into it. You know, we're forced to look and stop looking for attention outside. We're literally forced to look within, and with the people that we associate or lock down with. Like, what are some couple of, I guess, tips that you could give for people in lockdown who might not be doing as well as others?
Yeah, I think just having faith that things change. Like, if you look at the nature of things in reality, like if you look back at all of the moments that might have been challenging in life, or you might be sort of being squeezed right now by some kind of like challenge, whatever it is, you've lost a job, or I think if you look back at those moments, there was probably times in those moments that you felt like that was solid, like it's always going to be this way, and you can't see past it. Like, even if you look at the coronavirus and numbers and so forth, if you live in Melbourne and you're like, damn, well, like we're in lockdown and these numbers are just not going down. It's like, it can be deflating actually. So I sort of think that, if you have faith that things change, which they do, isn't it true that everything changes? That's that sort of truth of impermanence, that, our thoughts change, our emotions change, our beliefs change. And if we get into if we sort of trust that, then there's a sort of a relaxing that, what, this is a moment in life to experience, and rather than sort of rush it and I want to get the hell out of here, just to be in the experience of it, because I know this is going to change soon and it'll be something different, and I sort of notice that when I'm having a good time, when I'm sort of smooth sailing, I think to myself, this might change too, like good times change, and sometimes comes challenging times, and then you start to have less bias between what's happening. Like, it's not so much good or bad, it's just an experience. And I think so my greatest advice would be, if you're sort of trying to make something solid that might not necessarily be that solid, just notice that, and notice that the challenge perhaps will change, and there might actually be challenge can sometimes be recognized as extremely good news, because you actually learn and grow from challenge. So notice that in this challenge, even though it's going to change, you might find some growth in it, or something that you learn about yourself, or notice how you get really restless, or notice where you're stuck in life. And I think through that you can sort of get to know, you meet yourself, and you grow, and I think so. Yeah, I think the truth of impermanence, I'm always sort of banging on about impermanence, how things change and things aren't solid. So I think if there was any advice, that would be it.
That's amazing, man. My mind's blown already, mate.
Yeah.
Like, I see you as such a phenomenal person. Nurturing that community vibe, that community spirit, and I know that there's going to be heaps of people who would like to reach out and get involved and undertake your classes and mentorship. I guess the last piece of the puzzle is, how can people best contact you, or how can our community best contact you?
Yeah, I don't, it's interesting these days, because I'm not sort of in studios, but I'm definitely online with a few studios. If if you're out there and you want to, what I've found useful is trying to get a daily rhythm. Like, if I have a rhythm or like a routine, I found that's really useful, whether it's like wake up and do meditation and then go for some kind of exercise, or have a daily something that you're accountable to, whether it's a yoga practice, or so, if you're out there and you sort of lack that routine, or but you might be a mother of like, or father of like 5 kids, so your routine's all over the shop and you just want some time away. But if you want sort of like to lock something in during the day, I'm definitely teaching classes online with a studio called Yoke Yoga, and also Happy Melon Yoga. And if you're a teacher or a yoga teacher out there that perhaps wants some mentoring, I've got a mentoring program coming up starting next week called Fly Mentoring, and it's all about community and sharing and growth together, and looking at ways to refine teaching. So, but you know what, like, there's so much cool stuff going on out there. It's like, I think you just look for it, and once you start to look for it, you uncover what sort of resonates with you. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic, man. Like, as always, it's such a pleasure talking to you. Just energizing. I absolutely love it. Like, the first time we met, man, I just digress now, but when we met at the Super Bloom Festival, that was like...
That's right.
It was like this release of energy, but it was like this excitement, but also this state of peace, and it was just really nice.